A credible source has named who the next head of Lucasfilm will be, and what does this mean for the future of Star Wars?
Mandalore!
So The Hollywood Reporter, which is going to be one of the most credible, reliable sources on media news, released a very interesting article about all the studios that are or will be looking for new studio heads in the near future, and they're referring to it as the Game of Thrones of Hollywood, and it just so happens they mention Lucasfilm, and who is most likely going to be replacing Kathleen Kennedy as the head of Lucasfilm. Now the article goes into detail about how it's bad practice or frowned upon to hire a studio head from outside the company, and that it's best practice to choose a new leader that's been homegrown internally. And this is a quote from Barry Diller, who's the head of the IAC and Expedia group, who says, "Ideally, you bring someone in early in their career and they marinate in your enterprise, gain experience, and succeed whoever is senior. That's by far the better process. Bringing in a CEO whom you don't know, and I don't care how many hours you interview someone, you don't know them, is a bad dice throw and rarely works." And to me, this really hits home, reminding me of the early growing pains that Lucasfilm had experienced with the transition from George Lucas to Kathleen Kennedy and Disney. Kathleen was hired externally. She had never been part of Lucasfilm prior to the sale. She wasn't necessarily familiar with the deeper lore of Star Wars. What she was hired for is her knowledge and experience with managing people and a company of Lucasfilm's size, as well as being a liaison between Lucasfilm and Disney. Now the article goes on to say who is favorited to take over the studio, saying that Lucasfilm seems likely to follow that path in replacing Kennedy. Despite speculation about outside candidates, including former 20th Century head Emma Watts, insiders say the company seems most likely to promote from within. The current thinking is a scenario where the chief creative officer Dave Filoni and production head Carrie Beck take co-head roles. Now my current thoughts about this is that this comes as no surprise. We've been hearing rumors about this scenario for a little while now. I think the plan for with how the role is going to be divided is that Dave will be focusing more on the live action world building side of things, kind of like what he's been doing already, while Carrie will be overseeing more of the animation side along with taking care of Galaxy Edge and all the other side stuff. Now the article proceeds to mention, even as an arm of Disney, Lucasfilm remains in many ways a family business, and as George Lucas's protege, Filoni long has been considered a golden boy, but the knock against him might be that he's too steeped in Star Wars lore and risks steering a show into dense mythology that loses a broader audience. Now I disagree with the worries of the article when it mentions dense mythology as a downfall of Dave's. Star Wars prior to the transition to Disney was always known for having the most minute characters and throwaway lines, potentially having this long, rich, captivating backstory that people have always wanted to learn more about and explore. I mean, Obi-Wan mentioning the Clone Wars and A New Hope gave us a whole nother trilogy, and I feel that this is one of the biggest faults of the sequels. They overlooked the importance of these throwaway lines in Star Wars. Instead of letting small details feel naturally embedded in the universe, they often relied on dialogue that quickly explained everything to the audience. And this approach made Star Wars dialogue feel even clunkier somehow, rather than giving the impression that something like a power converter is just an ordinary part of the galaxy. And also by doing these short explanations, I believe you limit your ability on future expansions and stories to the franchise. Now what else is interesting is that an unnamed Disney insider in the article called Dave Filoni not the Andor guy, but the Ahsoka guy. Now what I think they mean by this is that they're comparing the differences between the two showrunners. On one side you have Tony Gilroy, who knows nothing about Star Wars but knows how to screenwrite and has decades of experience, while on the other side you have Dave Filoni, who knows everything about Star Wars and is great at world building, but he has little to no experience when it comes to screenwriting and directing live action, except for Ahsoka and a few episodes of The Mandalorian. Now I know there were people that weren't necessarily fans of Ahsoka, saying that the show had poor pacing, the dialogue at times felt clunky, as well as the story being left fairly open-ended. And I think the difference between what made Andor great and Ahsoka good comes down to the screenwriter's experience. Tony Gilroy understood that he can't write the story of Andor alone, and that he needed a room full of 3 other screenwriters, including himself, in order to create a cohesive story. And with the Ahsoka series, Dave Filoni was the sole screenwriter of the show. And I think this was Dave's mistake. As I've touched on in a recent stream, I think it's near impossible to replace a professional screenwriter at their job. They have years of formal education, experience, and the knowledge to develop dialogue, characters, and storylines for visual media. I think Dave just probably tried to take on too much for his first project. And the article concludes by saying Beck, who joined the company in 2012, knows the ins and outs, but neither she nor Filoni has much film experience, which could be mitigated to Kennedy's continued presence as producer on certain Star Wars projects, ensuring quality control in the short term. And I completely agree with this statement. Neither one of them has much movie experience, if any at all. Both of their positions have been mainly overseeing the animation side of Star Wars. Overall, the lack of experience doesn't necessarily bother me. They'll just have to really rely on hiring good directors and screenwriters to help them out. Not to mention they have Jon Favreau, who has an abundance of movie experience to assist them. And if Filoni and Beck really do become the heads of Lucasfilm, I think we will be in good hands, and I'm excited to see what the future of Star Wars has in store. Let me know in the comments if you think Disney should make Filoni and Beck the heads of Lucasfilm, or if they should hire somebody else. And if you enjoyed this video, be sure to hit that like button. It really helps out the channel. And if you want more Star Wars updates, theories, and breakdowns, don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss anything. Thanks for watching, and as always, may the Force be with you.